When will autism be cured?
You're born with it, there's no cure to it.
You mentioned Ayurveda.
There are multiple delays. It's my son who's been my inspiration.
I'll just start from the beginning. What made you start the center?
So, yeah, it's my son who's been my inspiration, and it's also been my journey, taking him to places. And I have always been like wanting to share my experience to everybody and say, it may be hard in the beginning, but then it does get better. And I have by default always helped people, and there have been so many people who today have benefited with my help.
Okay.
So I have seen people transform their thinking towards their children. There are so many instances. So he just, like, I wanted to do something, and I was very deeply connected to this topic, so I just opened the center.
How old is it?
It's been 10 months.
10 months.
Yes.
Okay. And before being a part of your own center, does he still come here? Does he come?
He comes every day.
Okay. Before that, where was he going?
He was going to another center, and that was far from our house.
Got it.
So it was also his whole thing that I want to have a childhood like my brother. I want to be relaxed. I want to spend my Saturday in a relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to build for him.
Got it. So what is the key difference that you noticed in any other center that you chose to send him to, and then you finally decided to set this up?
So the thing is that what I believe is that therapy is not sad, and deep down I needed therapy as a child. I needed to focus, and of course that time there was no understanding, and constant comparisons were made between my sister and me. And my parents were very open-minded and said that it doesn't bother us. There's each individual, and each individual flourishes when they are ready. So it did not bother me, but it bothered the society.
Yeah.
And because of that, there was pressure on me to like take individual tuitions, group tuitions, and a lot of time wasted, where the main reason that I needed was focus, and I just couldn't focus in a class of 40. And the minute I was put in a class of 16, when I went to like NIFT, I like maxed the school, and I couldn't believe it myself.
Yeah.
So it was that the environment that I was put in, I was not ready for it at that time.
Yeah.
And a smaller environment was what I needed, and then I flourished. So definitely, if I was put in a more difficult situation, like with 40 kids, I needed like a thing like OT to help me focus.
Got it. So typically, will there be any top 3 traits in a child for which he should be sent to take occupational therapy?
So, with everybody, it's very different. It can be like fine motor skills. Handwriting is when a child is not handwriting, like writing, and his peers are. That is typically when an older child is seen like, oh, there is. Or a child is not being able to focus, like not learning enough, fidgety in class, moving around, disturbing the class, being the naughty one, being pulled up by the teachers all the time. And everybody thinks like they're doing it purposely. And one has to understand that that is making them feel good at that time. So movement is making them feel good. And that's not appropriate. But what occupational therapy does is give them the food naturally. Like they can move in this environment and then not do it in an inappropriate manner in school.
Okay. So typically, what will be those key therapies? If there is maybe one therapy that you would have to recommend, maybe this question is also wrong, but if there is one therapy that you were to recommend for a child who has autism, what should that be, the first one that they should do?
So I would never say one is key, and that's where I have built this center. You cannot shoot in one direction. When there is autism, there are multiple delays. And without covering, like for instance, if you have a whole body fever and you need to attack like all the separate parts and say that, this is what you need, this is what you need, this is what you need. There are a lot of non-verbal kids who come to us at age 5, and the mother says that, he's not talking. I'm not even concerned about anything else. He's not talking. And that's when the speech therapist says that he has no focus, and without me focusing, like helping him focus, he's not going to talk, because his mind is just all over the room. He's not able to focus, so he will not speak. And the same thing, that on the contrary, that we have kids who come say that, oh, they are so hyper. Again, non-verbal, 4 years old, a parent has come to me and said, oh, why would he need speech therapy? He's not ready for speech therapy. He needs to first calm down. And we are like, no, there's already a significant delay. We cannot not work on speech.
Okay.
So while they don't talk, there are a lot of alternate way of communication, and that's what one has to understand in severe kids of autism, that a way to communicate is much more important than speaking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's actually very interesting. I'll come to that because I have a question around that, around communication. What can you define? What is autism exactly? As a parent, or maybe as an expert?
No, I'm not an expert, and I'm not even as a parent to say that what is autism. Autism today, from what I understand, is that you're born with it. There's no cure to it, but a lot of people would have autism and we would not know. And a lot of any delays, and doctors do believe that autism, when you see like there is a gross motor delay, and people do understand that as autism.
Okay.
So
Okay.
There's a very big spectrum of autism. So there are people who live completely independent lives, and we would not know. And of course, we think of autism as the very, very severe autism, which, so there are a lot of layers to autism. And I would just say, for anybody with any diagnosis, whether it's autism, whether it's Fragile X, whether it's any diagnosis, I don't think a diagnosis changes, it shouldn't change what you think of your child. It shouldn't be the barrier of that this is what my child can do, because I completely believe in like nurture over nature, and you just need to give them a little more than what you would need to give another child. But yeah, they have their strengths, and everyone really in life needs to be good at one or two things. And I think whether you're autistic, whether you're not, it's not so hard, finding that one passion.
True.
And getting good at it and having a good life. But it's a lot of acceptance for parents, which is hard. And at the same time, the journey to start is difficult. Any, where you're even a neurotypical kid today, a parent, I have tons of them who come to me. Even a neurotypical kid cannot accept that they even need OT for a few months. So, for a parent to understand that a child needs anything additional is very difficult. But, that is one part of evolving as a parent, saying that, I can't put my fears over what the child needs. And that's what parents should think about therapy or anything in general, that I have to put my fears aside, and this is what my child needs, and I need to do it and move on with life, not worry about why I'm being judged, or, why am I going to this place. I also made power learning in the way that I did was because I didn't want it to look like clinical. So the mind of a child is like, okay, they don't feel like this is a clinical setup. This is friendly, and this is, whether you need it, whether you don't need it, the child should want to come here. So, once you're over that battle that your child is okay, I don't think like parents should put their fears into a child and say
But
that,
have you come across a parent wherein you could easily see that the child needs some intervention, but they are not able to
oh,
accept
there
it?
are tons of it. And I
Yeah,
think whether it's schools, whether it's play schools, whether it's everywhere, I think there are tons of parents who are not accepting, and also believing that they grow out of it. It's not so
true.
important.
Hmm.
So all these things are definitely
To
there.
grow out of it, this is one very striking thing that I come across very regularly, wherein we say speech delay. There's a line between a child being a late talker and a child having speech delay. So, when do you feel, based on your experience with children here, should parents actually get alert and think about getting some intervention?
So, my dad was a late talker, and my dad passed away when my son was 10 months. So, of course, he did not know
Hmm.
my son would be a late talker.
Hmm.
So, even I was very relaxed at 2.
Hmm.
So, I always got worried, oh, he's not doing this, but then he did it, and oh, he didn't do it. It was actually my family and my husband's family who encouraged us, saying that, at 2.5 or even more than that, who said, like, why don't you go and meet a speech therapist?
Okay.
And that's when we went, and that's when we realized that there was a delay. So my point is that there can be a very minor delay, there can be a major delay. I would just say that if you feel something, and it's very intuitive, as a parent always knows.
Yeah.
So it's very intuitive to say that, okay, I feel this, why don't I just go and get it checked? So it's like, I feel something's wrong, why don't I check it? Just checking it, say, even if you go at age 2 and check it out, even if your child doesn't need a therapy, the speech therapist would give you strategies on how you can change the way you talk to your
Okay.
child
Yeah.
and improve their speech.
I was actually about to come to that. That what are some top three things that you would tell a parent of an autistic child to follow or to do with the child to make their lives easy or the child's lives easy? What are those three recommendations that you would have as a parent?
So first, for a parent, they need to put their selves in the child's shoes, that say that, okay, a child is not troubling them for the sake of being they're not doing it on purpose.
Acceptability.
It's not acceptance, it's acceptance that my child behaves like that, or rather further understanding that my child is trouble, and only that is why they are troubling me.
Yeah.
So that is whether it is autism or whether it is a neurotypical kid. Only when the child is troubled will they trouble you. So first, to understand that if the child is genuinely troubled, to first understand and accept that why they are troubled. Then, of course, being very thorough with your therapy, getting I would tell parents to be very like, because our country is not strong on documentation of progress reports or assessments, and that concept is not used everywhere. I would tell parents, that's my first suggestion, that when you go anywhere, let's put down figures on paper, like how much lag is my child, what are his skill levels, because you can be doing therapy, and of course you will see change because he's also growing in age, but that's not change enough. Is the gap actually increasing?
Got it.
Is the therapy what we are doing matching? Do we need to work more at home? What do we need to do to improve his, like, whatever you have for your child, like you want them to grow in this space, is what you're doing matching it? And if it's not, then realize that, and just not be like, oh, I don't want to hear as a parent to say that, okay, but you knew there was a problem when you came to us. It's okay, we do realize that there are, but we want to also be like, when we are doing something and work as a partnership with your therapist, and say that, what can we do better? How can we work better? Does he need more OT, or does he need more speech? Do I need to put in more hours at home? what is it that can make things better, and then have those 6 monthly meetings to see that these are my goals, have I set them, this is what the therapist noticed, this is what I noticed, this is how what I can do as a parent better, this is how the therapist, the therapy center can. And definitely I would say try and find, there are not many setups in India like what we've set up here, but try and find places which have two therapies, at least like speech and OT together, because it's so important that when therapists are not reaching their goals, they brainstorm.
They sit together.
And in our center, because we have 4-5 therapists in each category, so even if a therapist is stuck somewhere, like it's not achieving their goals, so they can go to the Autist and say, okay, that is one part of it, but they can also go to the other speech therapist who can say that, do you have some strategies that I can follow to get out of the loop that I am in.
Good point. I have come across a lot of parents who victimize themselves, especially mothers who are on a guilt trip. How do they come out of it? How do a mother especially come out of this whole victimization, that it is not my fault, nothing that has happened to my child is firstly not your fault, and how do you come out of it? It is only after that you can start helping the child.
So the point is, at that point of time, you feeling bad for yourself or your child is not what your child needs, right? Because they've already been dealt with cards that are not as favorable as you were dealt with. So one has to get over their pain or their feeling of guilt, because guilt is not going to solve anything. You can feel guilty all your life, and or you can, firstly, nothing's going to change. The only change that can happen is when you as a parent say, okay, I've been dealt with, like I said, I've been dealt with a puzzle. There are certain speed breakers, there are going to be certain, like, I'm not going to find the pieces that fix it, but I'm going to keep trying. And every day that I give to my child is going to be the best day that I could give. Not that so when tomorrow comes, you think back and said, could I have done yesterday better? Of course you could have. But today, can I do what I'm doing? Like, keep working on your child, and don't keep thinking that, oh, I'm doing so much and I'm not getting anything in return. Just keep doing, and there will 100% be light after the tunnel, however dark it is.
Sense. Yeah. So you mentioned assessment earlier. So what I hear from parents now is that, has it become easy for any doctor to very quickly label a child autistic? Or firstly, is that the case, or is it really going up? Are the cases of autism?
The numbers are going up. There's no doubt about it. And we have to understand, a doctor is also flooded with cases, and they have the opportunity of having only an hour maximum with a child. And if you're going to a developmental pediac, there can be a case that your child doesn't perform because he anyway would be anxious, and putting him in that environment, they are going to come out with being anxious. So there can be a time when a doctor can write autism. But we have to, like I said, take everything, whether it is autism, whether it is ADHD, whether it is just sensory processing disorder, the medicine is the same. So take everything with the, like, don't fight the diagnosis, like, how could the doctor say this, how could he not say this, how could he talk like that about my child? It really doesn't matter, because what had to be done is done. Now what has to be done is from your side, right?
But in certain cases, which I've seen in my family also, the diagnosis has not been correct for the longest of the period. Are there certain assessments that a parent should know of, that if it's verified or certified by this, that this is an assessment agency, if I get an assessment done on what spectrum my child lies at, then this is definitely
that is still like, what level of autism is it? That only a developmental pediac can give you a score, or what part of the spectrum you are in. But I think, like, for all parents, where the skills lie is more important. right? Whatever the number is of the diagnosis, it doesn't change, because that child, whether it is any number, is your child. What I would say is important is that you have to keep bettering the skills of your child, and that is something that we are very like strong with, and I believed in, that no child should just come in and start therapy and grow with therapy and say, oh, we are seeing progress. I want numbers, I want figures, I want like say where they were. So we have like standardized tests like bot, where the parent actually gets a score of where their skill lies. So are they like, if they are 6, is their like skill level at 2 or 3? And then we reassess them after 6 months or 1 year to reassess that what their skill level is. So I would just say that go for formal assessments wherever possible.
So is there a certified agency or a standardized setup that is there in India that they can go for?
No, so these are standardized tests which our occupational therapists are allowed to practice. So try and go to places that do use the formal assessments rather than the informal, which will say, oh, there is a like quantitative delay of this, because this is just from the therapist's point of view. It's not like you've sat for an exam. Like I feel you know, like after the assessment you are a 60% student, versus I have proof why you are a 60% student. There's a very definite difference in that. So try, there are not many places, but try and find the formal settings, and don't hesitate to not spend that extra 1,000-2,000 rupees and say that, oh, we are getting an informal assessment. What will the informal assessment? But the informal assessment is shorter, is not standardized. Go for a therapy center, spend that little extra and get it, and then that these were the starting points, and now where you've progressed.
Got it. Did you come across this? So a friend of mine, she is the mother of an autistic child, and she brought up this whole research which was around MMR vaccine, and she believes in it. She says that according to her, she said my child was absolutely on the developmental milestones, and just after getting this, probably close to 2 years, 1.5 years of age, is when she started noticing changes and a downfall in his development. Is that true?
So like I said,
I know it's a very it cannot be a right or a wrong answer.
So but this is like we know in autism there is regression. That is a part of the diagnosis. And that is what we have seen a lot of kids coming, and that's really, really sad. I find it really, versus like a speech delay, it's progressive, right? That you didn't speak and now you're speaking. So every day there's hope. Versus the parents who come with autism diagnosis here and say that my child used to talk. Look, they used to call me mama. Look, they used to say 2-3 words, and now they can't. Yes, a lot of times we also ask, was a vaccination given, and did it happen around that time? But once again, these are such variables that one cannot guess, and there is not enough research. There's far more research needed on autism to know whether it caused it or it doesn't. But once again, the medicine is the same. Just keep working and be positive. Understand your child, and put their needs over ours, and that's a big part of it.
True. So a lot of parents who come back to me sounding very, very positive are actually parents who have invested themselves heavily, in addition to the nutrition they give, in addition to the therapies that they do. So how big a role do you think nutrition plays in this spectrum?
Oh, completely. I mean, let's think about why we're talking about neurodiverse. I mean, do you not follow nutrition for yourself? How conscious are we today on what we eat and what we drink, and how it tells on our system? I mean, that is definitely going to play a part on a neurodiverse child, where not only neurodiverse, even neurotypical, you change processed food and they're just going to be better.
True. Yeah. So I think that's been initially when we spoke, you mentioned Ayurveda, that you believe in it. What has been your experience using that for your son or for other children here also, if you have?
So the thing is, my son was really thin,
Mm.
and he just wouldn't put on weight. And I had a family experience where, my cousin's husband had to come. He had a gastro issue, and the doctors in America had said he would not be okay.
Mm.
And then he came here and followed the Ayurvedic way of medicines and eating and everything, and he got cured.
Okay.
So my mom was like, one fine day, why don't you just go and meet this Ayurvedic doctor? Like, what would so I was like, okay, it won't harm.
Mm.
So of course he met my son, and told me and explained to me like what foods were good for him, and hyperactivity, and he had like extra vat, and it made a lot of sense. So it so happened that we started following it right after COVID. And he then started putting on good weight, and I
Sure.
could like see his focus improve. And so I believe a lot in Ayurveda.
Yeah.
Like I and when you're trying to shoot, you shoot in every direction, and
Yeah,
you will
true.
see better results.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned cure. I'm sure you do come across parents who come to your center and say, when will autism be cured, or can autism be cured? What do you say to them?
So they don't come and say, when will autism be cured? It's more like they come and tell me, when will I get a discharge?
Okay. Okay.
Do you give our type of children? Have you ever given children discharges?
Okay.
So of course we have given children discharges, but that's of course for not very severe cases of autism or something. But
Okay.
that's something that one, and what is the phobia? Like, my whole thing is like, do you ever get a discharge from the gym? Now what if I asked you a question, when will you stop going to the gym? Or you go into a gym and say, you tell me before I enroll, when will I get discharged?
Yeah.
You get discharged, you will regress.
Mm.
The answer is the same as therapy, right?
Yeah.
You move out for children who need it, and for definitely the kids who need it, the severe cases do need it for years together. And one has to just take it in their stride and say, this is a part of their life, just like schooling. And
But do they come and ask you, when will he be cured? Do parents think that this is a disease that the child has to be cured from?
they do, and that's the first thing that we have to my therapist explain, that it's not like a fever, it's not going to go. They are born with a certain condition, and we will train them to manage the condition. So it's not about that it will never go from their body, but definitely it can get managed.
So I have come across some star students, by the way, who are autistic, exceptionally intelligent. And this is what I learned from some of the so-called doctors slash scientists, that typically, and this may go in your favor, that parents who have very, very high IQ, the variable of parents having very high IQ and the child being autistic, there is a pause. So if a child is autistic, it may be so that the parents had very high IQ. And because generally autistic children are very sharp. Is that true?
So again, it's such a spectrum. Honestly, we have very, very low IQ children from autism coming, and very high IQ children coming. It's such a spectrum of, autism is such a word that, it can be like a million children, and you will not find a single person that is the same.
Sure.
So, one has to, like I said, whatever the diagnosis, whatever a parent has to deal with at that moment, whether it is, like I said, ADHD, SPM, or autism, they just need to be positive and say that, okay, now this is a situation I am in, and how best I can deal with it, and how best I can help my child, get out of it.
So one last thing that I want to know. So typically parents ultimately want an answer to this question, what will my child do when he grows up? how will he sustain his life, how will he live. Is there any set of top 3 career choices that you feel an autistic child will always have a benefit on?
So, like I said, we all need to find that one
Okay.
thing that we are passionate about. Definitely things that don't involve like people skills is something that we want to eliminate. But it's very encouraging, to see there is like, especially for programming and like managing computer data and stuff like which is repetitive. I'm sure like the kids would be great at that. Or we know, like from the Autism Forum of Bombay, one of the children is a marathon runner, one is a baker. So they just need somebody else who's great at like painting and sells their paintings. So you just have to encourage your children to be as independent, and find that one or two thing which really they are passionate about, and de-stresses them, and they are good to go.
Yeah. What does your son like to do?
Oh, my son likes to do everything. My son is more into music because, like
Okay.
my husband says, I love playing music all the time. So he's that.
Okay.
He's a people's person.
Okay.
So he loves spending time in school. He loves being on the mic because he tells me, he says that I'm so tired of making people listen to me. So I like it when people listen to me. So he loves being on stage. He loves talking. And
Okay.
because he thinks he has the power where everyone else is quiet and everyone has to listen to him. So yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. So this has been lovely. Thank you. I think from this, my objective was that, such questions, which are very brutally honest questions that parents always have in their mind, they get to hear from a parent herself who has a huge smile on her face and who seems very content with the way things are going.
Absolutely.
And I think that is what gives them more courage, mainly to parents who are living in tier 2, tier 3 towns where they are told it's like you're outcasted from a setup. And I think they tend to believe that some havoc has happened in life. This is the disease. Now, how do I get rid of the disease? And they try everything but what is to be tried.
Yes.
So I hope this.
I would say get online help. Get
Yeah.
online help. We have people reaching out to us from Jaipur, Agra, Madhya Pradesh.
Okay.
Get an online consult. We give like detailed home therapy. Once a month, do a consult, do online therapy, do anything that. And unfortunately it's still a ways to go where like therapy centers will progress in the tier 2 and tier 3 city. But don't keep that as a reason to not do therapy. Take the step, do an online consult, take the step, plan a holiday with your child around a center which is closest to you.
Got it.
Go do a physical examination and what will help. Take as much, learn.
One thing that you mentioned initially, which I said I'll ask you in the end, was you said communication. It is the most important thing, that it is not about speech as much as it is about communication.
Yes.
What did you mean by that, and how do you enable communication in a child who is non-verbal? Do you use apps, and how much do they help?
Oh, they tremendously help because think about someone who's cognitively say at age 2 or age 3, and they're at age 5 and they can't tell you what they want. And there's only going to be behaviors. And it's hard for children, like for rather parents, to say that, oh, understand that maybe my child is non-verbal and I'm going to give an alternative communication device. But once the parent accepts it and sees like how easy the child has a form of communication through a device and is not frustrated anymore, that and you get into it and you feel like my child is talking to me, whether through words or through an app, it's still my child talking to me, and that's what is the most important.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because we are working on an app and we wanted to hear from parents not just therapists, I know therapists use it in their centers, but from parents, how beneficial is a communication app for a parent? Do parents use it at home also with their
Yeah,
kids?
yeah. So definitely we train them,
Okay.
and that. So basically, we tell them to use one of the devices as a communication device
Okay.
uh, alone. And the parent has to be an equal partner where they keep taking pictures of
Okay.
his interest, because we can cover his interest in this therapy station, right? But whether he wants to go to like Juhu Beach, or that's when you, if you take him to Juhu Beach, you take a picture and put it on. So tomorrow if he wants to go to Juhu Beach, he can
Oh,
do
interesting.
or
Huh.
like you, a specific park that he likes, or a
Hmm.
specific place in the park where he
Hmm.
has an option
Hmm.
of pointing and like telling the parent where they want to go, what they want to eat, their
Hmm.
favorite foods.
Hmm.
Keep like inserting pictures of like
Hmm.
what they're eating on a daily
Okay.
basis. So it's like I said, it's communication is the most important. And that's what like my therapists tell like parents of 4 and 5 year old non-verbal children, that let's learn, like let's teach them how to communicate right now,
Got it.
whether through words or through an app. And there is some amount of they do say that some amount of speech does get enabled with the
I was about to
apps.
ask you that. Does it
Yeah,
help in speech and vocabulary development as well?
yeah, because it's repetitive, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
app is also
Yeah.
teaching them like the same words.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if there is a chance of them talking, they would pick up those words because it's like a repetition.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you so much.